All right, happy Friday. You're watching Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Chase Senior. Hope all of Philly is gearing up to have a fantastic weekend. Before we get into the latest Sixers news and rumors on James Harden as well as Furkan Korkmaz and whether or not the Sixers are the favorites to come out of the East, give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Chase_Senior. It's been a blast being able to grow this channel over the last couple of months as somebody who hails from the Philadelphia area. And if you give me a follow on Twitter and IG at Chase_Senior, I'll give you a shout out on Monday's show. Now, we continue to have this conversation of how good are the Philadelphia 76ers after the acquisition of James Harden. Really, the next 10 games are going to tell the full story as to how much potential this basketball team has. Friday night's game at the Wells Fargo Center, it's going to be lit again against the Cleveland Cavaliers. One of the big surprise stories of the NBA season thus far, Miami Heat, back end of that back-to-back. Right now, I think Miami, the toughest team in the East from a mentality standpoint. They're really good defensively. I think they have the best head coach in the NBA in Eric Spoelstra. That right there is going to be the biggest test. The Sixers have been able to own the Chicago Bulls, but albeit that's a really good matchup against a playoff caliber team. The fraud Ben Simmons is not going to play with the Brooklyn Nets in that game on March 10th, but KD is back, and he's a walking bucket. Man, he played really well in his first game back off that knee injury against the aforementioned Miami Heat. We'll take a look at our good buddy Markelle Fultz on the 13th, and then the next 5 games after these previous 5, Denver Nuggets against the Joker. We get to see Embiid, who is the front runner for MVP against the guy who's right on his heels, the reigning MVP in Nikola Jokic, followed by the Cavs, the Dallas Mavericks, Luka Doncic over the month of February, averaging 35 points per game. The Toronto Raptors with the Sixers and the 2 seed right now are in 7th. That could be a preview as to what's to come in the first round of the NBA playoffs. Then it's another game against the Miami Heat. This tough slate for the Sixers is a good litmus test to see where this team is, how good they can be, and some of the adjustments that they have to make along the way. Look, James Harden and Joel Embiid, as well as Tyrese Maxey, as the three-headed monster of Philly, they've been marvelous so far in the previous 3 games, but they've gone up against some lackluster and mediocre opponents in the Minnesota Timberwolves and then back-to-back games against the New York Knicks. I want to see Philadelphia go up against some of these playoff caliber teams to see really where they're at. Of course, they have the potential. They have the firepower to win the East and make it to the NBA Finals for the first time since 2001. I just think it's a little bit too early to say right now definitively that the Sixers are going to come out of the East going up against teams like the Miami Heat, Milwaukee Bucks, Brooklyn Nets with KD. They're very scary because I think KD is the number 1 player in the NBA when he's upright and healthy. So time will tell, and maybe the next 10 games will tell us the full story of where the Sixers are at currently. How many games do you think the Sixers will win over the next 10? Quality opponents on the schedule. Get your predictions in here at Chat Sports. If you're new to us, we love hearing from you. Here on YouTube, think of the comment section as a Sports Talk Radio call-in line. You call WIP. You call 97.5 The Fanatic, where I used to intern with Mike Missinelli. Let us know how many games the Sixers will win over the next 10 and get those predictions in the comment section right now. The last 3 games have been really incredible. I mean, Daryl Morey looks to be the big winner in this. James Harden looks rejuvenated. He looks really, really happy. He's having fun on the basketball floor. And I want to pose this question for the people. Like, when was the last time the city of Philadelphia was this excited about the Sixers? You go back to when the acquisition of Jimmy Butler took place, and he hit that game winner against the Charlotte Hornets, and he really played well down the stretch. But Jimmy Butler doesn't have the star power or the accolades or the resume that James Harden has. And at that point, Joel Embiid hadn't quite entered the prime that he's in right now, where he finished runner-up in MVP last year, and right now he's the front runner for MVP and is in a completely different stratosphere with his all-around game as compared to where he was a couple of years ago. And I kind of make this similarity, right? I was at Terrell Owens' first game when he played for the Eagles against the New York Giants in that home opener back in 2004. And the feeling in the city when the Eagles were able to move on from Todd Pinkston and James Thrash and Freddie Mitchell and have a bona fide number 1, the aura and the palpable buzz and excitement just didn't compare to years prior. That's how I feel right now with James Harden in a Sixers uniform. And a big reason for that, what he's been able to do in his first 3 games with Philly. 27, 12, and 8 in his debut against Minnesota. Against the New York Knicks, when he turned Madison Square Garden into Madison Square Harden, goes off for a triple-double, historic performance, 29 points, 16 boards, and 16 assists and 10 rebounds. And then on that back end of the back-to-back and home against the Knicks, he once again comes forward with 26 points, 9 dimes, and 9 rebounds. When Daryl Morey made the trade for James Harden, he said that James Harden was a basketball savant. And in the first 3 games that we've seen James Harden in a Philadelphia 76ers uniform, he has looked like a basketball genius. His feel for the game, his basketball IQ is extraordinarily high. And James Harden has never been the most elite athlete on the floor. He's really had to go in the lab and put a bunch of work in to really grow and expand his offensive arsenal. His footwork on those step backs is really, really terrific. His knack for getting to the cup is so crafty, and his passing ability, the innate feel that he has on the floor as a floor general and a point guard really is top tier. And the Philadelphia 76ers have never really had a basketball player like this. Allen Iverson was exciting, but he wasn't the true floor general that James Harden is, and he didn't have the array of offensive moves in his offensive game that James Harden has in his bag right now. James Harden is a basketball savant, and I was thinking about this the other day. We're kind of seeing the next step and the next era of James Harden as a basketball player. When he was with the Houston Rockets, he was a pure bucket getter, and his usage rate was so high. But now, we kind of see that James Harden is extending his basketball prime. This is what the great players do in the NBA. As they get a little bit older, they have to adapt and adjust because they're not the same players that they once were a couple of years ago. That's the case with James Harden. We're seeing the next era of James Harden as a basketball player. He's gone from being a primary scorer to more so still being that very, very good scorer, but now he's more of that prototypical point guard, and he doesn't have to be relied upon and asked to really carry the load as much offensively with the Sixers as he once was asked to do with the Houston Rockets. And this extension of his prime years is really, really impressive for James Harden because he's really become that pass-first point guard who can kind of oversee the offense and really facilitate while still being an elite scorer and a threat to put the biscuit in the basket as soon as he crosses half court. Are you enjoying the content that we're giving you here on Philadelphia 76ers Now? If that's the case, we appreciate the love as we continue to grow like crazy. But if you like the videos that we're churning out and the content that we're giving the city of brotherly love, next up, I want you to get into the comment section and show me that you like the content by typing yo. Also, we are closing the gap on Boston Celtics today here at Chat Sports. Let's beat those Boston bums on the basketball floor and inside the walls here at the Chat Sports studios in Dallas, Texas. Yes, I hail from Philadelphia, but I hate Boston. And there's nothing I want more than for Sixers now to overtake Boston Celtics today, especially considering the fact that we launched this channel over the summer and it's the fastest growing Sixers channel on YouTube. So if you want informative, entertaining, consistent, fun, educational Sixers coverage from a guy who's loved this team since I was a kid out the womb, then hit that red subscribe button down below because we've been pushing out multiple videos per week, and more subs simply equals more videos here on the channel. We also give you the hottest deals on these streets, like this Philadelphia 76ers zip-up warm-up jacket. Now, I have the gray one, and I've rocked that a couple of times here on the show. This blue one is on sale right now, knocked down from $150 all the way down to $85. James Harden in his debut was wearing this. This is the same warm-up that all of your Sixers wear prior to the games, and Nick Sirianni at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis prior to Harden's home debut was wearing this as well. You can get it right now on sale for today only by plugging in that link down below, chatsports.com/76zipup. I'm going to put that link in the comment section as well as the description of this video. Want to pivot to Furkan Korkmaz right now because in NBA free agency, I thought it was a really good deal for Daryl Morey to sign him to a 3-year, $15 million deal. Why? You're paying $5 million average annual value to a guy who has shown some growth with his three-point shooting stroke. And of course, in today's NBA, you always put the utmost value in guys who can find twine from beyond the arc and stretch the floor, especially around Joel Embiid and now James Harden. Now, you'd think with the trade of Harden and the beard now in Philadelphia that Korkmaz would get some open looks and he'd really be able to light the league on fire and hop out of the shooting slump. Hasn't happened yet. Is it going to happen around the corner and on the horizon? Potentially. We'll get to what Doc Rivers had to say about Furkan coming up here in a few moments, but let's first take a look at what Korkmaz has done the last 2 years and the struggles that we've seen come to light here in 2021-2022. What the Furk is going on with Furkan Korkmaz? Last year, 9 points per game, connected on 40% of his field goals, 37.5% from beyond the arc, which is an extraordinary figure, really, with the volume there. 73% from the charity stripe on a little less than 8 field goal attempts per game. This year, points per game down to 8.5, but the big concern, three-point percentage down from 37.5 to 29.5. Yes, the free throw numbers have gone up, but I want to see more from Furkan Korkmaz, and there's really no excuse for him to not hop out of the shooting slump playing alongside James Harden when he offers his teammates so much floor space and open looks from long range. Doc Rivers is confident that with more shot opportunities, Korkmaz is going to get back to the Furkan that we saw last year. He said this: he's just got to play himself out of it, man. There's no secret to it. It goes in and out, right? I talked to him today about being a confident shooter. You have to be. You have to be willing to miss 4 or 5 in a row and believe the next one's going in, because I put enough time in practicing to know that it's going to win. That's what shooters do. And we keep waiting for Furkan to break out of the shooting slump. I'm waiting for him to just light it up and go 7 of 8 from deep and get that confidence going. Right now, he doesn't look like a confident shooter, but you know that saying out there, shooters shoot, you got to keep shooting, and eventually, you're going to be able to really just die down all of that chatter, all of that pressure of being in that shooting slump. But if it doesn't happen this year, and if we have to chalk up this year as being a down year for Furkan Korkmaz in the grand scheme of things, are we going to see more Isaiah Joe? I know Doc Rivers doesn't always like to play inexperienced players, and sometimes Isaiah Joe can get lost defensively, but he gives you some athleticism. He gives you some floor spacing. He doesn't need to tiptoe the three-point line, like Tobias Harris does. He has range to his game where he can let it fly a couple of feet beyond the arc to give him some of that space to let some threes fly. And when you're playing with James Harden, you want to have as many three-point shooters on the floor, ideally, as possible, especially when Embiid is on the floor as well, to give him some room to operate down low. So if Furkan continues to struggle, Doc, look to Isaiah Joe. He has that potential to fill that Furkan void, and I'd like to see more minutes from IJ. Are you worried about the Sixers' depth? They signed DeAndre Jordan. Furkan is struggling. Shake Milton, he's been up and down, but now that he's coming off those injuries, he did look good the other night in that win at home against the New York Knicks. But let me know. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Let me know if you're worried about the Sixers' depth. And while you're down there, don't forget to hit that red subscribe button. We've been pushing out videos almost every day here on the channel because, man, you guys have shown us so much love by the video counts, the views, and as well as the subscriber numbers. And turn on those notifications. Therefore, anytime we do push out a video, you will be notified. Just hit that bell icon. Have an awesome weekend. We'll see what the Sixers do against the Cavs and the Heat back-to-back nights, and we'll break it down later this weekend and on Monday.